The country's new COVID-19 cases are trending down, even though the figures are still high. But if we continue to observe the safety protocols, this pattern will certainly continue. Thanks for making it Jamaica Magazine. I am Adrian Atkinson. Today we highlight changes to be included in amendments to the Domestic Violence Act and to offer safety tips for students who have to take public transportation at this time.
Is your facility approved for COVID-19 testing? The Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, through the JANAC Accreditation or Pre-Accreditation Approval Program, validates labs and point-of-care testing facilities such as medical centers. Accreditation safeguards the quality of test results and consumer well-being. Use a JANAC accredited or PAP approved facility for your tests, and let's defeat COVID-19 together. Contact the Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, confirming competence, providing confidence in the marketplace.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your JIS News for Thursday, May 27, 2021. The Jamaica Railway Corporation will be setting up train transportation for students going from Old Harbour and Linstead into Spanish Town. Transport Minister Robert Montague says that in addition to students, teachers, parents, healthcare and other essential workers will be prioritized when the service begins in September. It's being led by the Jamaica Railway Corporation, JRC.
In partnership with the JUTC and the Ministry of Education, we are hoping to move our children from Old Harbour and Linstead into Spanish Town by train. Then the JUTC will pick them up and drop them off at the various schools in Spanish Town.
Minister Montague was delivering his sectoral presentation in Parliament on Wednesday. He says the school train service is supported by recent developments, including the installation of a solar light project at the JRC's Kingston branch. The Transport Ministry is also working closely with the Jamaica Heritage Trust to restore railway station houses, starting with the Old Harbour Station House this fiscal year. In the meantime, the Caribbean Examination Council, CXC, has postponed all upcoming exit exams by 2 weeks following regional consultations. The news was revealed by CXC Registrar Dr. Wayne Wesley during a virtual live update yesterday.
This will provide candidates with extra time to prepare for the examinations. Therefore, examinations will commence on Thursday, the 28th of June, 2021, with release of results the last week in September to the first week in October as previously communicated.
At the same time, Dr. Wesley says that after careful consideration of all pertinent issues, the Council has also agreed that the administration of all papers this year will be maintained in their original forms.
That is, for CAPE and CSEC, papers 1, 2, and 3-1 school-based assessment, or paper 3-2 for private candidates, and for CCSLC, papers 1 and 2.
The deadline for candidates to register their intent to defer from the examinations has been extended to May 31, while the deadline for SBA submissions has also been extended to June 30. In other news, the Ministry of National Security will be piloting several pieces of legislation that are critical to bolstering public safety. Key among these are the Criminal Justice, Suppression of Criminal Organizations Amendment Bill 2021, the Firearms Licensing Act, and the Trafficking in Persons Act. The Corrections Act and the regulations for the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, MOCA, are also on the legislative agenda. Portfolio Minister Dr. Horace Chang provided details during his sectoral presentation on Tuesday. He says the Firearms Act will be brought to Parliament in a few weeks, while the Trafficking in Persons Act will be amended to replace the option of fines with custodial sentences.
I wish to place on record that the trafficking in person is high on the agenda of the government and the Ministry of National Security. This government recognize our obligation to put the requisite measures in place to eliminate or minimize incidents of human trafficking within our country.
Dr. Chang says the policy for trafficking in persons is near completion and is to be taken to Cabinet. He assures that this will be completed by the second quarter of the current legislative year. A water project is being developed at the Reynolds Pier in Ocho Rios as the Ministry of Transport and Mining continues work to expand operations at the location. Portfolio Minister Robert Montague says this will allow the ministry to separate the tourism operations from the industrial activities at the pier.
We are developing a water project as the demand for high alkaline water has increased, and we have 2 high alkaline springs that we are seeking to develop to meet this demand.
Pointing out that the Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited currently owns 51% of the Reynolds Pier, he says the ministry is moving to regularize the section of the land on which squatting is taking place. Meanwhile, Jamaicans will soon see more reclaimed bauxite mined-out lands being used for the production of oil nut trees to produce and sell castor oil. The Transport and Mining Ministry has finalized an agreement with the Jamaica Castor Oil Grower Association to undertake a program to boost the production of castor oil in the country.
Our castor oil is in great demand worldwide, and we have seen others making products and branding them as Jamaican castor oil.
The mining minister gave the update during his sectoral presentation in Parliament yesterday. With the castor oil industry today being worth millions, Minister Montague says Jamaica is poised to benefit from this lucrative industry, pointing out that the mining industry contributed to 3% of the country's GDP last year. He says using mining lands for castor oil production is likely to boost that number. And finally, the National Social Housing Program has delivered its latest dwelling to a family of 10 in Salt Springs, St. James. The 3-bedroom house was built at a cost of $9 million. At Friday's handing over ceremony, Prime Minister Andrew Holness reiterated government's commitment to giving more Jamaicans access to affordable housing. He says government will be making 30,000 houses available for the low-income housing market. This will be done through several modalities, including the low-cost housing design competition.
So every Jamaican who is in the housing market should be able to find a housing solution that meets their price point. That when you put that with the NHD's borrowing categories, you should be able to get up to $6.5 million borrowing individually. So that puts you well within the affordable housing category.
And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, join us in helping to make Jamaica a safer place for all. Log on to jamaicaeye.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Steps are being taken by the government to effectively address the issue of domestic abuse in a comprehensive way. As such, it is amending the Domestic Violence Act to make it more inclusive, with stronger fines and prison term for breaches.
There are countless victims of domestic violence across Jamaica. Some sadly will not make it out alive. Domestic violence or intimate partner violence has maimed and claimed too many lives. Neither men nor women are spared. But government is taking steps to cripple its immobilizing and far-reaching grip on our society.
Cabinet has given its approval for the amendments to the Domestic Violence Act, which will serve to strengthen the law.
According to the United Nations, domestic violence is a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. It is any physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological action or threat of actions that influence another person. One of the amendments to be made to the Domestic Violence Act is the inclusion of a comprehensive definition of the term.
The definition will make clear that domestic violence is not only physical, but also psychological, emotional, and sexual, and may occur in situations where intimate images are exposed to inflict harm on a person, among other situations.
Another legislative change will be the expansion of the category of people who will be allowed to apply for protection orders on behalf of an abused person. Government will also expand the conduct or behaviors that the court may prohibit the respondent from engaging in under a protection order.
This will include a prohibition on taking possession of or damaging a property that the victim may have an interest in, as well as directing the perpetrator to pay compensation for monetary loss incurred by the victim as a direct result of conduct that amounted to domestic violence, and also directing the perpetrator to relinquish firearm license, firearm, or other weapon to the police, and other orders that the court may deem appropriate.
Another modification will be the widening of the threshold to be met in obtaining protection orders from the court. This is to give greater protection to those who need the orders to keep abusers away. And additionally, government will be increasing the penalty for breach of a protection order.
The current penalty is $10,000. We want to see the penalty move to $1 million or imprisonment for at least 1 year.
Though these amendments will go a far way in strengthening the law, perpetrators cannot and will not be punished unless persons speak up and speak out against domestic abuse. If you or someone you know is in a violent relationship, reach out to the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport for help immediately.
They can call 876-553-0372. We will get to you and we will ensure that you get to a safe place. We have the call lines for the men and we have lines for the women. Feel free to call us. We are here to help you. That is a commitment of this government.
Jamaica, we are in the throes of a pandemic. COVID-19 cases are on the rise. COVID-19 related deaths are climbing. COVID-19 bed capacity at our hospitals has been maxed out. Yet still, some of us continue to flout the COVID-19 containment measures. Some of us still refuse to wear masks in public places. We still gather in groups of more than 10. We still break the curfew hours. And we still attend illegal parties. Wise up! Take responsibility for your health. Safeguard the health of your loved ones. Obey the COVID-19 protocols.
Up next, a reminder of fines attached to breaches of the National Disaster Risk Management Act.
These penalties do not replace the sanctions for offenses that are already in the Principal Disaster Risk Management Act. Anyone who commits an offense, who is brought to the court, convicted before a resident magistrate, parish court, is still liable to the maximum fine of $1 million or to imprisonment not exceeding 1 year.
The Disaster Risk Management Amendment Act 2021 was passed in both Houses of Parliament to strengthen the enforcement of COVID-19 protocols. The bill specifies 10 levels or tiers of fixed penalties, which range from $3,000 for first-level offenses to $500,000 for offenses at the 10th level. There are 40 offences specified that attract these fixed penalties. Among the penalties are a $5,000 fine for not wearing a mask in a public place, refusing to comply with social distance rules, and breaching the rule governing public transportation. A $10,000 fine is to be paid by those who do not comply with the curfew order or who fail to stay at home when experiencing flu-like symptoms. Gathering in groups of more than 10, operating a gym outside of specified hours, or hosting small outdoor events are breaches that each attract a fine of $20,000. Jamaicans who fail to quarantine upon returning home from overseas will be charged $25,000, while tourists who refuse to stay inside the resilient corridor will face a $30,000 fine. Companies that do not comply with specified workplace requirements will be fined $50,000. A $50,000 fine will be meted out to persons who break quarantine after testing positive for COVID-19, and a $100,000 fine for those who conduct funerals, worship service, burials, or weddings in contravention of the Act. Bars operating outside of the times specified or operating without the necessary licenses will also be fined $100,000. Persons who operate a beach, zoo, or park outside of specified times will face a $250,000 fine. And hotels or resorts that fail to operate within the COVID-19 protocols will be fined $500,000. This fine also applies to operating a hotel or resort not licensed under the Tourist Board Act or certified by TPDCO. Nightclubs, amusement parks, or water attractions operating when ordered closed, and business process outsourcing companies which breach the protocols.
The notice also offers a chance of paying a fixed penalty for the offense within a specified period of time, failing which the notice becomes a summons to the court, a summons to appear in court to answer the charges.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60, and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus, and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with, for the same benefit.
Many students sitting final exams have now resumed face-to-face classes to help them prepare. It means they are taking public transportation to school, but COVID's still a keep, so here are a few ways to help them stay safe.
To the news. The taxi is full and I don't want to catch corona.
You can't squeeze in here, son.
No, sir. It's okay. I'll wait. I have to protect myself from the coronavirus.
You don't be late to school anyway.
It's better to be late and safe. Just last month I was running down the stairs for classes, but my school has reopened. Are you going back to physical school too? Do you have to take public transportation? If you answered yes, I have some tips for you. Just a few guidelines to help you stay healthy and COVID-19 free while taking public transportations. First, remind mommy and daddy to check the news for any public transportation changes. Make sure you have your mask and sanitizer before you leave your house. Your sanitizer should have at least 60% alcohol. Also, bring extra masks in a clean and sealable bag. Make sure you wear your mask while on the road or in a taxi. I don't mean under your chin or below your nose. It should look like mine. It should cover your nose and mouth. Still practice social distancing. If a taxi has space to carry just 4 persons, it should carry 1 less. So you should be the 3rd person, not the 4th. Do not take off your mask in public. Always keep it on. Don't touch surfaces, but if you have to, wash your hands with soap and water. Take taxis or buses with the windows down so that there is proper ventilation. That means there is a steady flow of fresh air. As soon as you reach your destination, get out of the vehicle and go straight home. Don't stop to play with your friends. And when you get home, go straight to the bathroom to have a shower before touching anything or anyone. And also, if you are sick, just stay home. Yay! A taxi that's following COVID guidelines.
The Office of the Children's Advocate is very aware that we have some parents who get particularly anxious at the start of a new school year. And so we really just wanted to share with you a few tips that you can utilize to help keep your children, especially the very young ones who are going out for the first time, nice and safe from sexual abuse. Parents need to recognize that the private parts, as we call them, or the genitalia, are regular parts of the body. And so in teaching your children about the forehead and the nose and the hand, you can also teach them the names of these body parts, because that does 2 things. It puts them in a position to speak about these parts when something is going wrong, and it also tells them that even though they're private parts, it's not too private to talk about, particularly with a parent. Children need to know that there should be no secrets between them and their parents or guardians. Oftentimes, when persons want to abuse children, they tend to encourage them to keep a little secret. You know, this is between me and you. But from very early, parents need to establish with their children that the lines of communication are open. Mommy and daddy, or auntie and uncle, or whoever is the responsible adult in that child's life, can actually have a discussion, age appropriate of course, about anything at all that may be troubling the child. The 3rd tip is that parents need to cultivate throughout the child's lifespan that environment whereby the child feels comfortable to speak. Conversation should not be off limit, topics should not be taboo, and you really need to get to a stage whereby you have teachable moments, we call them. So we see a lot of things reported in the newspapers, sometimes on the nightly news, and we can use some of these instances of horrible things that are happening to other children to start little discussions with our own children to give them tips as to how they can avoid or prevent, perhaps completely, any such reality happening to them. Sexual abuse is always a very difficult thing to confront, particularly when the alleged victim is a child. Parents, if it is that you suspect that your child has been sexually abused, or is in a vulnerable set of circumstances where an abuse may occur, we encourage you to have dialogue with your child. take the child to the pediatrician who normally attends to the child. If there is no such pediatrician, take your child to the clinic, to the hospital, to some medical practitioner who can do an assessment for you. It's very important as well that we don't just look at the physical side, but we also seek to find the kind of psychosocial support that a child may need. Does the child need a session with a counselor? Does the child need to speak with a pastor who is used to dealing with these issues? Does the child need to get that ongoing psychological support to assist with the healing process and also to assist the child in becoming strong enough, as it were, to deal with the various processes that will follow once it is that you suspect an abuse has occurred? If it is that the child actually discloses when you engage the child in discussion that, yes, mommy and daddy, I was abused, we encourage you to entertain the child, to listen to what the child has to say to you, and to take it very seriously. So we really urge you to have those discussions and to seek guidance in terms of, do I speak to the police about this, which we always say you have to, because once a child has been sexually abused, it's a criminal matter, and it means that once at all possible, the child should be assisted to go through the processes so that the perpetrator can in fact be held accountable. Support your child and let them understand in very clear terms that they are not the cause or the reason for this abuse having been perpetrated. But the most important element is to support them, get them access to the services that they need, and give them a chance to have you give them that listening ear. For these tips and of course any other information that deals with children, that is anyone under 18 years, please feel free to contact the Office of the Children's Advocate. We're at 72 Harbour Street, downtown Kingston, and our numbers are 948-1134, or website www.oca.gov.jm. Thank you.
Watch what you teach your little children. Make sure I know something to hurt them. Mind what you're saying to my sister, cause she could be the next Prime Minister.
This is where our journey ends, but only for today. Do join us again tomorrow when we'll bring you another informative program. In the meantime, stay connected via our website, jis.gov.jm. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm or via tweet at JIS News. You may also find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.